Okay, we're in Pei Dal Halacha Yidal. The Shulchan says this: Isha shnimtza acher bedikas sheretz hanir le'nayim. If a lady checked vegetables, and afterwards, you found bugs afterwards. So, and you found a bug that was near le'nayim, could go in chametz, whatever a chametz is, a big bug that anyone could see. Also, lechem bedikas. So you can't eat from her checking afterwards because obviously she's not doing a good job, and if she's not doing a good job, you can't eat from her. If you only found the kinds of bugs that make their way through within the leaves, that you can't tell unless you really cook it up, then you could tell. I mean, it's very hard to find them. Because we assume she did a good job, but she missed something, and it's people make mistakes and they miss, so that doesn't passel her from checking afterwards. But if she missed something that was obvious and clear and right in front of everybody, very clear to everyone to see, then you can't eat from her because obviously she doesn't do a good job. So the simple reading of this din, everybody who reads this din would say is, so you see, it seems very clear that a lady could check vegetables for bugs. The din is only talking about what happened if you checked, she made a mistake, she didn't check well enough, you found afterwards. But it seems partial to the din, partial in this din, that she could check. There's no reason why she shouldn't be able to check vegetables. Okay, so we're going to talk about it. We're going to do this in 2 parts, maybe even 3 parts, talk about this, whether that's true. And in this part, what we're going to do is, we're going to talk about the principles of how we know when we should trust somebody, and we're going to focus on, you'll see that depends on a man, a woman, or a child, different rules for each of them. How do we know whether we should trust somebody? And then the next time, we'll get back to some of the practical applications of it. I'm going to give you some examples in a second, but we'll get to some of the practical applications and then come back to our din, what it was talking about in our din. And just one more thing to introduce you is to tell you, most of what I'm going to say to you is coming from a couple of simanim later, Sim Kuf Chav Zayin, and Gimel and Dalad, and even the beginning of our Halachos is also over there, later in your day about trusting somebody. And a lot of what we're going to hear today, a lot of today in particular, is coming from the grow over there. Okay, a lot of the very long grows over there. Okay, so here's a bunch of cases where we think about whether we should trust somebody to do something for us. Okay, so I have here a bunch of, 6, 7 cases. And for each one of them, we're going to have to think about next time whether we should trust the person to do, whether the person is a child or a lady or a man to do it. So we have here checking blood spots. You have a bunch of fish that have trephon mixed in. You want to sort out the right ones that are kosher. You want to be the mashgiach for Chol Yisrael, to stand there and watch the milking of the cows. Our din, checking vegetables for infestation, tefillas kalim, to be menachto an animal, or for Bedikas chametz. Okay, these are a bunch of examples. Actually, we'll come back to more of them maybe in the next time. But these are all different kinds of examples where you're going to ask someone to do something, and the question is going to be if the person is a man or a lady or a child, under which situations can you or can you not trust the person when they tell you that they did the job when you assigned them the job. Okay? Now, it's going to come out. I'm going to tell it to you now just to keep you focused that there are going to be 6 factors that depends on whether you decide whether someone should have nemanas as sort of like as an eidach in these cases, and they are. First of all, it depends if it's a man, woman, or a child. We're going to see that the halachos are not the same feature. The next is, it depends if the shaila on hand is an issa d'oraisa d'rabbanan. Is it a schazki surah? Is the person who's saying over what happened, is it biyadai? Could he have controlled what happened, or is he just reporting on something that he had no control over? How difficult is to be done? And are we talking about a vade issa or a safek issa? Okay, so these are 6 factors that we're going to see as we go on. These are 6 factors that make a difference whether the person should or should not be believed.
Does it mean that Edis or Gilui Milsa doesn't make a difference?
Well, Gilui Milsa means, is another way of saying that it's not a biyadai thing. He's just reporting a piece of information, as opposed to the biyadai case where I have control over something. Okay, and maybe what you mean is a Gilui Milsa. Sometimes that word Gilui Milsa means to say it's not a schazki surah. I'm not saying over something that changed. I'm just telling you a piece of information. One of the examples is I have 2 pieces of meat. One is kosher, one is treif. So it's not a schazki surah. None of the pieces is chazki surah. I'm just saying this is the kosher one, this is the treif one. That's a different kind of example. We'll come to that in Mitzvah. Okay? And we're going to find out, what we're going to talk about today is that there are going to be 5 proofs, 5 rayas that are going to help us set up all these things. Okay? There are going to be 5 cases that we're going to... I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, there are 5 rayas that we're going to bring. We're going to talk about rayas from 5 things. Okay? And they're going to be, what we're going to do today, it's going to be one is a raya from Zavvah, One is Taharos and shechitah. 2 rayas from Bedikas chametz. 2 different Rishonim will talk about Bedikas chametz we have rayas from. And the last one is from having something to do with Techum.
What is that add LLC? I know what LLC is, but I don't know what add.
At the location, it's Latin for me at that location.
Oh.
They call it
Al-Asar.
Al-Asar. Okay, that's how you write in English. Okay. Okay. So the first is from Zavvah. Okay. As you probably know, the Gemara says in Ksubis that the way we know, the Gemara basically says, the way we know that Eidach and Bisurin is, because it says in the Pasuk of the Safra law, a lady who's a Zavvah needs to count Zayin Kiyim. The Pasuk says, the Safra law, she could count for herself. So you see from there, Eidach and Bisurin. She doesn't have to bring a raya, she doesn't have to have 2 Eidim. Safra law, she's Eidach and Bisurin. Okay. The Gemara says in Gittin, the Gemara sort of says that means Eidach and Bisurin. Taisus speaks out the words that the Gemara is trying to say Eidach and Bisurin. The Gemara doesn't say. Okay, we're coming to that. Okay, the right in the Gemara that says that, so to speak, Eidach and Bisurin, we're coming to ladies in a second. What you're saying is coming to in a second. So then the Gemara says the Gemara says in Gittin, at the very beginning of the Beis and Beis, says that an Eidach is not Neman in cases where it's Ischaz Gisura. Okay, in the case with this Ischaz Gisura, there's an established Isser, and you're trying to take it out of this Chazik, and Eidach is not Neman. So, Fraktais in Gittin, he says, what's going on over here? The Safra law is talking about a lady who's a Zavvah. She's Ischaz Gisura. I mean, she was a Zavvah already. So if she's a Zavvah, she's taking herself out of that Chazaka. So Fraktais, the Gemara says in Gittin, by Ischaz Gisura, Eidach is not Neman. Fraktais, the Raya, that is the Eidach and Bisurin, is from the case of Ischaz Gisura.
Does it change because it's right to change?
So Tosfos says, that was Tosfos' Kashrus. Tosfos' answer is, he gives a 2-part answer to the Teretz. I'm not sure if it's 2 answers or 2 parts of the same answer. You could read it different ways. Tosfos says that there's a 2-part answer. First of all, the Ischazik of the Zavvah is not as strong as a regular Chazaka because it's Chazaka that's going to change. Okay, she's not going to see her Zivus forever. Her Zivus is going to stop at a certain point. So the Chazaka, usually Chazaka means that if something is today, it's going to continue on. But if just because she's a Zavvah today, it doesn't mean it's going to continue on forever. So it's a weaker Chazaka. And second is, Tosfos says that it's Biyada, because it's Biyada Litvo. That is to say, not biyada to stop the zivas, but once the ziva stops, it's biyada for her to be tovelas, and therefore she has an emunas because she's it's biyada. What does Tosfos mean? The Gemara says in Yevamos, Tosfos is medayik. The Gemara says in Yevamos that an eid echad is nemun by tevel. An eid echad is nemun to say that he was mafresh shumas amaisers, even though it's a Ischaz Gisura. I mean, the stuff was tevel. When it grew on the ground, it was tevel. So you did the miruach, it was tevel. But since it's biyada to fix it, an erechad is neman. So Tosfos says the reason why the lady is neman is because even though the Gemara says by Ischaz Gisura you're not neman, that's only when it's not biyada. But if it is biyada, then you're neman. Okay, got it so far? Okay, so that's our first discussion. And from that, we're going to have. I'm going to show. Okay, here's our case. I'm going to show you. Look on our chart here. We have here 60 cases, okay, that we have to think about whether an 8 echad is going to be neman. And as I told you, there are these 6 different factors that there are to decide whether they're neman. So those 6 factors break themselves up into these 60 cases that there are over here, okay? So we have the Raisa and Drabanan, those are the bigger ones, male, lady, and child, Ischaz Gisur, and some of those details on the right side we'll get to as we move along. Okay, so we have, from this first raya from the Gemara about a Zavvah, and this discussion about a Zavvah, we could fill in this many cases already. I didn't count how many there are. We fill in these cases, okay? We have, if you're looking at the chart, the ones with the capital, okay, we do have cases by A, B, C, D, okay? The one with the capital is the case that the Gemara Mamish talked about, and the one with the lowercase letter is just, we could be medayik from it, okay? What was the case that we had? We said if the lady, in the top middle, the lady, by a shayla of the Raisa, it's biyada. Okay, it says biyada. It's biyada. Even it's lois chazik yisura. Then she has nemanis. If she's believed when it was lois chazik yisura, and it was biyada, don't worry about the tircha part of it. We'll get to that later. Then the lady's neman. Of course, we figure out from there that a male would be neman in that case. A lady and a male would be neman would be a drabanan, of course. What about Okay. Next, our next raya about Taharos.
And
and by some devices. Okay. But on the bottom, you see by Yischaz Yisur, when it's not biyodai, then you're not neman. Okay. By lo Yischaz Yisur, and it is not biyodai, you're neman. When it's Yischaz Yisur, but not biyodai, then you're not neman. Okay. Okay. But I'm saying on the bottom, you see that by devices, even men are not believed. By if it's not biyodai, then it's Yischaz Yisur. That was the Gemara Gita. Okay. Next, about Taharos and shechitah. The Gemara says in Sukkah that a child who's old enough to understand how to keep tahara the way it's supposed to be is allowed to be a shomer to make and tell you that food stayed tahar. Okay, you could leave him home, and he could tell you that the food that you had there, the thing that you had did not become tummy. Okay. At the same time, if a child knows how to do shechitah, and you give him an animal, he's not neman to say that he did a shechitah. Okay? So,
that's not the rices to go level.
We're talking about the rices. We're talking about the rices. Okay. So the Ritva says, you see from here, and we see from the Gemara Pesachim that we're going to talk about in a second, about Bedikas chametz, that a child is not neman like an Eidachot. We're talking about a man and a lady, not a child. So the Ritva wants to know, so how come the child is believed for Taharos? Okay, we said that if he's telling you that there was Taharos, that the food did not become tummy, he's neman. So how come, if we said that a child is not neman as the Eidachot, how come he's neman? So the Ritva says that the case of Taharos is lo Yischaz Yisura. Since the when you left the stuff there, it was tahar. So he says if it's lo Yischaz Yisura, then the child is neman. Then the child is neman. If it's Yischaz Yisura, then only ladies and men are neman in the cases that we talked about before. Okay?
What case you need a cotton for? In case you saw shirts lying around and asking if they touched it.
No, you just left them home.
So then why would you even need the cotton to give them mothers there? You can just put it on its chazak and then it's gone.
I don't know. Maybe there's something came up.
I don't know. What about in the case when you saw shirts dead?
It says lo Yischaz Yisura. I don't know. I don't remember the Gemara. Okay, you're saying maybe what's the reason for the
what is he being neman?
Fair question. Okay, so from here now we filled in some more cases. Okay, I lightened the ones that we did from the last time. Okay,
Legos.
What'd you say? Yes, we're going to fill up the whole chart. In We're going to fill up the whole chart. I mean, I know because I know it's coming. We're going to fill up the whole chart. Okay, so we filled in a couple of more cases with our case over here that the cotton is not neman for the rices by its lo Yischaz Yisura. But a cotton would be neman by a drabanan. That's going to be from the Gemara Pesachim that a cotton is neman for drabanan. Only over here that it's a derice, the cotton is not.
That's what the A and B stand for.
A was case the right proof number A.
Okay.
Now we're up to proof number B from Taharos. That's the B that's the raya. This is the second raya. Okay, we're going to have A through E.
I read it.
Okay.
And which one was A, shechitah?
A was shechitah. Yeah. With Zavvah. It should say Zavvah. Okay. It says neither, but it should say Zavvah. Okay.
They also need it.
Well, no, you don't. Well, the raya is of the tefillah itself, right? But the raya actually, the Gemara says from V'safrullah. It doesn't say in the pasuk that she's neman that she was tefillah. It doesn't say that. It just says V'safrullah. Of course, we're medayik that we're mammon her on the second one. Okay. Next, the next raya is from.
How do you know about Zohar? She's never until she was tefillah.
I guess it's understood from the pasuk. It says V'safrullah, and then she's tahar. So it's sort of understood that. We're going to believe. I guess it's understood that we can believe her. Or maybe not. I mean, maybe we just have to figure that out from our rules ourselves. But on the sphere Zainikim, that's what our right is from. We'll figure out by ourselves now that she's now on the tefillah. It could be that it's partial. Okay. The Gemara says in beginning of Pesachim, on Daf Daled of Pesachim, the Gemara says, ladies and children are neman to say that they did Bedikas chametz, even in cases where it's Yischaz Yisura. Okay, we're going to get back to this next time. But the simple reading of the Gemara is that even in cases where it's Yischaz Yisura, Ish and Katan is neman. The Gemara says really they shouldn't be neman because, as we see that a lady is not neman by Yischaz Yisura, but the Gemara says since it's a drabanan, so hemnu drabanan b'drabanan. The Rabbanan believed her in cases where it's only Issa Drabanan. The Bedikas chametz is only a Chiyav Drabanan. That's to shut them. Why? But it's a Chiyav. It's only Drabanan. So therefore, we believe her to say that it's her or a child to do Bedikas chametz. Okay. Fractosis. Why does the Gemara say that we only trust the lady? Because it's a Drabanan. We saw that even by Issa Deraisa, even if it's Chaz Gisura, we believe the lady as long as it's beyond. It's beyond. Of course, it's beyond to do Bedikas chametz. So why does the Gemara say that the only reason we believe her is because it's a drabanan? It's not only because it's a drabanan. Even if it would be a deraisa, we should believe her. We should believe her on Bedikas chametz. We saw by the Gemara by Tevel that she could say that she was ma'aser the food, and we believe her. And then Tosfos sticks in what David said before him. He says, "Ma'asim b'chol yoim," that we trust ladies to take care of the kashrus and the food. The Tosfos feel after he says "Ma'asim b'chol yoim," he proves it from the Gemara Ksubas. The Gemara Ksubas talks about a lady who fed her husband treif. Okay, but the implication is that she would be believed. Otherwise, if not that she, in this case, she's not believed. It's a child about a ksuba, but she would. Otherwise, she would be believed. So Tosfos feels more confident bringing the right from this. Okay, so Tosfos says, why? So why does the Gemara over here say that a lady? We only believe a lady for Bedikas chametz because it's a drabanan. So Tosfos from the Yerushalmi that Bedikas chametz involves a lot of tircha and diktuk gadol. Okay, it's a very painstaking, involved task, and therefore, in that case, we would not believe the lady if it was an Issa D'Oraisa, and only because it's an Issa D'Rabbanan are we willing to believe the lady. So when the Gemara says, Hemnu D'Rabbanan B'D'Rabbanan, is because this case is we would not believe the lady. This is a case where there's a big tircha to do it. It's very intricate to do it. Therefore, in this case, we would have not believed the lady, except that it's a D'Rabbanan, that's why we do believe it. Okay, now, I'm just going to jump ahead for 1 second. In D, we're talking about Sina. We're going to find out that others don't agree with this. Okay? Not everybody agrees to this. Okay, but what we're saying from Tosfos is brought in the shach right in our simon, that there's such a rule, Mr. will deal with that next time also, that if it's a tircha gedola, if it's a big very involved and very painstaking to do the job, then we don't believe the lady for an Issa D'Oraisa, only for an Issa D'Rabbanan. Okay? So now that's going to teach us a whole slew of cases. Okay? That's going to fill in a whole bunch of more cases. It's going to fill in a whole number of cases over here, that cases where, see the third line, each one is, where it's a tircha meruba. If it's a drabanan, we're going to believe a lady. Okay, if it's a drabanan, we're going to believe a lady. If it's a deraisa, we're going to believe even a man. Okay, if it's a deraisa, we're going to believe even the man. Our cases that we're talking about were cases where it was ischazik yisura. Okay, the Gemara was talking about ischazik yisura. But it's not clear to me, that's what the question marks on the top, it's not clear to me what would be the din if it was lo ischazik yisura. Okay, Tosfos is talking about, he says, Bedikas chametz is Chaz Gisura. The Gemara says in Ksubas that the ladies believe even if it's Chaz Gisura. Frank Tosfos, so why over here is only in this case? So Tosfos because it's Tircha Meruba. Tosfos doesn't tell us what would be the din if it would be Loyas Chaz Gisura. Would we believe a lady for a deraisa? I looked at this question.
Why is it considered Chaz Gisura if it's Austria?
It's Chaz Gisura means is that the thing she's reporting about is there was no Isser in the place. So
when she
before Pesach,
I don't. It's chazik means is that if there's a reason to believe that the thing is true, we have a chazaka telling us the thing is true. The isura is not the operative word. The operative word is that there's a chazaka. There's something telling us that what was is going in a certain direction. Then you want to change directions. You need to be a stronger aid to say that. So if you want to say we had a reason to believe there was chametz here, for you to say there's no chametz, you need a stronger level of aidus to do that. Whether it's called isura is sort of. Not the main point. The point is the chazaka here.
I agree with you, but it could be also, let's say you're on Pesach now, and you say, was this room borak or not? And the Isha says, yes, I was borak this room.
No, the Gemara says it's only believed before Pesach, only when it's a drabanan.
I'm trying to say, but when it's considered as chazaki surah, if it would be on a deraisatic level, would be, let's say you came into the house and say, okay, Pesach, was this room cleaned? So, and now it's chazak yisura, because if there was chametz in there, it would be an issur deraisa.
Okay, but again, I'm saying, I don't think the point is the isura. I don't think isura is the focus. Okay. It's chazak means to say is, we have a chazaka that of course, if it wasn't talking about isur, we wouldn't need to change it. Okay, but isura is just that the thing that's bad has this chazaka on that thing. Okay, so we filled in a few more cases over here. Again, the man is going to be believed in the cases of, even there's a tircha. It's only the Gemara, only the Yerushalmi says by a lady, or the Gemara is saying, the Bali is saying that by a lady we're not going to believe them in certain cases, for deraisas, but a man we're going to believe them, and the lady we're going to believe by drabanas, and even a child. So the Gemara said you believe a child, and nu drabanan b'drabanan to do the Bedikas chametz means even though it's a Chaz Gisura, even though it's tircha meruva, we believe them anyhow, they're allowed to do it. Okay. That was how Tosfos talked about Bedikas chametz. Now we move to how the Ran talks about Bedikas chametz. This Ran is in the beginning of Chul. He brings the Yerushalmi more of the words of the Yerushalmi than Tosfos does. Okay? The Yerushalmi that he's quoting is really not halacha. What I mean is that the Yerushalmi he's quoting is a Manyaman who says a lady and a child are not allowed to do Bedikas chametz. Okay? But he's just bringing that, and Tosfos means the same Yerushalmi. It's the same Yerushalmi. He means to prove from that, just to show you what the case is like. So it's a machlokes in Yerushalmi. He's quoting from the Machmir, even though we pass like the Mikvah. And the words that he quotes, it's in the Yerushalmi. It says, Shehein Atzilus, Vehein Boikin Koshu Koshu. Okay? The Ran says what that means to say is, Yerushalmi is saying is like this. The Yerushalmi is saying is that if you had a Vadai Isser, if you had Tevel that needed to have Rosh Hashanah Sumaisis, so the ladies can do the job just as good as the man is. No reason why she won't do it. But in a case where you're not sure if there's Isser, okay, even though it's Ischazik Yisura, in this case means it's a house you've used all year and nobody cleaned it for Pesach. That's what the Gemara's case of Ischazik Yisura is. So the assumption is that there is chametz in the room. Okay? But she doesn't know that there's chametz in the room. It's not like she's in a bread basket. It's something that it's very likely. I mean, it's been used the whole year. There's probably chametz in there. So she will take the job more lightly because it's not Vadei Isser. If there's Vadei Isser, she takes it just as seriously as the man. If it's only a Sophic Isser, then she takes it in lightly. The Ran says, he says, Techum Ruba makes no difference. He argues something. He says, Lahedya. He doesn't agree with, I don't know if he used the word Tosfos, but he argues what Tosfos says, Techum Ruba doesn't care about. But he says, what the nafkamina between the Gemaras is whether there's a Sophic Isser or there's no Sophic Isser. So where we might think that Sophic Isser makes it better, the Ran says, no, Sophic Isser makes it worse. Sophic Isser makes the lady take it more lightly, and she won't do her job correctly, or as thoroughly as she's supposed to. Okay? So therefore, only by Bedikas chametz, which is the Rabbanon, that's why you're Neman, even though there's a suffix. But for the Raisa, you would not be Neman unless there's no suffix to the Isser. Okay? The Ramah, when he brings this in Kuf Chav Zayin, when he brings this Ran, he adds on another knage. It's the same idea, but a different variation of it, which is not only if there's a suffix on the Metzias, is there or not, but if there's a suffix in Din, the Rambam says if there's Yesh Stadam Lahakel, then we also don't trust the lady, because she'll take it lightly. She'll say, there's Mekilim, we could be something on the Mekilim. And she also will not take her responsibility seriously if it's a Deraisa. If it's a Deraisa, she won't take it, we're concerned she won't take it seriously, we don't believe her. So we only by Drabanans we believe her, even if there's a tircha or even if there's a suffix. Excuse me. But for the Raisas, we don't believe her if there's a tircha, that was last time, and the Ran is not saying that if there's a suffix or there's a mahak. Okay? Here we go. We saw a whole bunch more cases, okay? Okay, so now we have these other cases where there's a little tircha, no problem. Where there's a more serious, where there's a suffix, or there's a tircha meruba, then by the Raisas, the lady is not going to be neman, of course the child is not going to be neman, only by the Rabbanan are they going to be neman. Okay? As you see, we're almost there. We've got almost all the cases filled in already. Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip that part. Okay. Next, the last case, E. The last writer is from the case of Techum. The Mishnah says, it's a Mishnah Eruvin says, that a lady can tell you where the Techum ends. You can say, Ad kan Techum Shabbos. And the Gemara says that she's only allowed to say that because since Techum is a Drabanan, so she's allowed to make that announcement, tell you where the Techum ends. Tosfos in Psachim says, that's what the Gemara says about a lady. He said, but the Gemara says in Ksubis, a Mishnah in Ksubis, that if an adult comes and says to you, when I was a child, I used to live in that neighborhood, and when I remember that the Techum used to go until here. So the Mishnah says that's an example of a case where an adult is allowed to say edus about what they saw when they were a child. Tosfos is Medayik. They're only allowed to say that when they're an adult, then they can say what they saw as a child. But had they said it when they were a child, they wouldn't be Neman. So for Tosfos, why is it that the Isha is Neman, it's a Mishnah, that the Isha is Neman to say when the Techum ends, but the child is not Neman to say when the Techum ends? We're being Medayik. What? So after Rabbanan, that's why we understand why the lady is Neman. But Tosfos, so why is the child not Neman? Why is the Isha is Neman? And the Gemara said in Psachim that a child is Neman for Bedikas chametz. So we trust the child like the lady for Drabanan. So how come for this Drabanan we don't trust the child like we trust the lady? Okay, emphasis. The answer is that the case of Bedikas chametz is different than the case of Techum, because the case of Bedikas chametz it's biyadai. So although it's a chazik yisura, but it's biyadai. In our case, the case of the Techum, it's not biyadai. You don't decide where the Techum is. You don't make the Techum someplace. You're just reporting on where the Techum is. So because you're only reporting on the Techum, therefore the lady is neman because it's Rabbanan, even though it's not biyadai. The lady is neman. The child is not neman about the Techum because since it's not biyadai, the child is not neman. Okay?
Why not Kamina? Why we see that you say that it's biyado?
A biyada has more nemanas. That's from the Gemara. That biyada has more nemanas.
I understand, but why is it zero for the biyado has no nemanas that you will believe a cotton when he checks by Bedikas chametz, but not neman to go ahead and say, okay, up there was the Techum.
So
because that has to do with das.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. But I guess the svara is that if the child is being, it's just telling you piece of information, he might not tell the truth.
So
did you do the job? Did you take the task? Did you do your job? Then if he, I guess somehow he.
But also have anything to do with Efshel of Ara afterwards to see if Lamai say he did it. And here you can't, because wherever the Techum is, the Techum is.
That could have been the answer. That's not the answer that Tosfos brings with it. Tosfos says the answer is it depends if it's biyadai or not. Okay. What'd you say?
That's not me.
Okay. What's going to happen? What's going to happen if?
Oh boy, we're in trouble now. We are in trouble. What are we going to do now? We cannot go over the border.
Remind you later.
Huh?
Please remind you later.
Where's my mouse? Where's my mouse, guys? You guys are really
I've been over the border with a passport.
Put a trap.
I usually click on the thing first. Click. Something's highlighted. Something said thank you. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you know.
Okay. Thank you, Yossi. Okay. Okay. What's going to happen in? There's one list here. Let me read what I wrote over here.
About a restaurant.
Okay, I'm going to skip it because I don't remember. Okay, you'll have to read it afterwards.
Anyhow,
so wait a second. So from this, right, we're going to bring in fill in our chart. Okay, well, I don't remember that. Those ones on the bottom is what I don't remember on the bottom. So you have to read my notes afterwards. Anyhow, so from this last case of Techum, we found out that by a lady would be believed if it's loyas chazik yisur, if it's not biyadai, like by the case of Techum.
Only by a drabanan.
By a drabanan should be neman. The katum would not be neman in that case. Both of them wouldn't be neman if it was a deraisa. As far as a drabanan by chazik yisur and not biyadai, of course the child is not neman. That's obvious. The child is not neman. An adult, a man would be. That's the part that I didn't remember to tell you. That bottom green one on the bottom right green one over there. By a man, by a chazik yisur where it's not biyadai. Okay, it's chazik yisur where it's not biyadai. That's prima gadam. That's what I didn't remember the details. That's a prima gadam. I think I'm reading that wrong. Okay, we'll have to change it. Anyhow, so this is where. So just to summarize where we got to. Okay, we went through five riots.
By drabanan. In a biyada by Techum.
Oh, by drabanan. Oh, it's by drabanan. Okay,
it's not by deraisa.
Not by deraisa.
No,
yes, thank you. Thank you. By drabanan. That was the prima gadam. Was about that bottom right green over there. That is chazik yisur by any biyada for a man. By drabanan is neman. He doesn't look about a lady. That's why there's a question mark over there. But he talks about by man. That's neman. Okay, so the what we left is we had 5 gemaras or 5 cases that we had riots from. We figured out for that the dinner for all these all 60 cases over here. Okay, for all of our 60 cases, we figured out when someone is or is not neman.
I thought you said an isha is believed by drabanan and by Techum. Why is there a question mark? An isha is believed to say
no by loyas chazik yisur. Whoops.
Yeah, right in a biyado.
By loyas chazik yisur, by chazik yisur, we don't know whether she is or is not neman. Okay, so what we have is we got all these principles over here. Okay, and we had 5 cases from which we figured out what the din is in all these situations. Okay, and now for next time, we have to apply them to a bunch of situations, real situations. We talked about, we mentioned some of the cases that we had before, but there's more involved, and that'll bring us back into our din. Again, where we started from, that the Shulchan implied that a lady is believed to check vegetables. Okay, that's what we started to talk about, and there's much more to say. For next time.